Hello everybody, and welcome to the first edition of the EC Life Sofa segment. This past summer, we introduced to you a new EC Life magazine. We're very happy and proud as the Chamber to take this publication and bring it to life. This is going to tell the great stories, the great businesses, all the wonderful things we enjoy here in the Eau Claire area. And the purpose of it is, in one case, for you to share with people to try and get them to move to the Eau Claire area. We've got a lot of exciting things going on. As we all know, this is not the Eau Claire it was 10 to 15 years ago. So our hope is that this will help tell that new story and entice new people to call Eau Claire home. Our first guest this morning is Matt Pabich. Matt Pabich opened up Raggedy Man 3.5 years ago. And we're going to spotlight his story today and what we have going on. So Matt, welcome, and most importantly, welcome to our furry little friend.
Yeah, she's the real reason.
She is, and unfortunately she's a little camera shy, so right now she's flat out. We're not pretending we're talking to somebody, but Matt, you know, okay, as you look at your story, you went out to school like a lot of kids raised here in Eau Claire, came back, found, let's say, the traditional job, went to work, you know, but that wasn't you. What was that burning inside of you that you wanted to own your own business?
Yeah, it's so like you said, I left for school. I grew up in Eau Claire my whole life. Went to school in the cities, you know, the big city, leave Eau Claire, and had vowed to never come back as the journey went. But post-graduation, was able to secure a really good job here. It was a desk job in a cube, and that just wasn't sort of the space for me. I was there for 4.5 years. And it was a great job, it was a great transition back into the community, but what it gave me time was to appreciate how different Eau Claire had become in those 4 years that I was gone for school. The downtown specifically, I mean, obviously that's where I located my business. The goal for me at that point was to get open before the Pablo did. So I could get my foot in the door and establish myself before some of the big pieces moved onto the board. And it worked out amazing. I'm super lucky and super grateful that I was able to at that time.
So you really were part of this transition. You left when Eau Claire downtown was still not real sure what was going on, and now to see all this vibrancy, how excited are you about that?
It's awesome. It's super fun, and what's great, like I said, growing up here, I honestly can say I have zero memories of being downtown. I mean, even to the fact moving back, you know, the Oxbow wasn't here. That was still the, you know, the Green Tree, and just all these shifts that have happened within the last 5 years. This huge like pressure cooker that was downtown, and we're starting to see the things bloom from that now, which is really exciting. A big fun one is like seeing my classmates as they pass through town to visit their parents, or as they're slowly transitioning back into town, and hearing them excited about all the stuff that's going on in Eau Claire. And it feels nice to be able to like genuinely feel really proud to speak about like, yep, I'm back in Eau Claire, and I feel like I'm helping make some of the changes to make it the place that people want to be.
So when you were working in that cubicle and realized this isn't for me, how did you center in on the small business that you did open?
Being in the cities, there's a couple of shops there that I really enjoyed going to, especially gift stores. The thing that makes me happy is it's just fun to go out. You know, it's sort of like going out to treat yourself to something is always a fun day. Finding something fun and unique for your family. Eau Claire loves a chain store and a box store, but what it lacked for me was the ability to find something like, you know, a snarky card, or, you know, just some odd thing that you couldn't get anywhere else. Obviously, we're huge supporters of local people and local businesses. There's an insane market for local makers downtown. And so I was fortunate with my business structure that I was able to go, you know what, you guys are covered. There's so many stores. So I get to pull from a little bit farther and kind of different bins that some of the other places don't get to. And that was one of the biggest things, was just like creating a unique experience.
Sure. So opening small business, you know, again, a lot of people don't maybe follow that path or that dream. What would be the one thing that you would say to somebody who's looking, again, now we know through downturns like we have, this is naturally a huge upswing for people starting a business, because part of it is, what have I got to lose? I don't have a job anyway, so hey, let's do this, you know? But what is the one thing you learned that you just had, like, wow, this came out of left field?
I think for me was kind of establishing my voice as a business owner, going from sitting in a cubicle and working for somebody else to becoming your own motivation, your own boss, getting up every day and doing something that if you don't make money that day. That's the journey, is finding that self-motivation and drive to really commit to yep, this is what I'm doing and this is what I'm passionate about. And there are days when it's not there. There are not fun days, but that's part of any journey.
Yep.
And appreciating that and knowing that I think I've established a voice and established myself as a member of the community and as a business community too. And that's what I love, especially where I'm at right now. I can walk down the street and tell you who owns every single thing and wave at them and say hi. And it's really about being involved. You can't be an island if you want to be successful.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, again, a lot of people don't understand if you don't go to work. We talk about the number of small businesses. So how many people is that? And I think we could quote probably 5 different numbers, anywhere from 500 down. But you are really the epitome of a small business. It's you. So if you don't show up, there's no money coming in. And I think sometimes when we, the chamber and the community and other groups reach out and tell people to support small business, that's what we're talking about. It's all of them, but really to a point, it's those that are 1, 2, 3, 4 people. That again, if they don't open the door, there's not something coming from somewhere else. So with that, and kind of put myself on an edge here a little bit, have you started looking at, or are you selling through the internet?
Not yet. I am the smallest business, I feel fairly confident saying, on the street. And it, until recently, was just me. I do now have an employee. I have secured a new spot. So this spring of 2022, we'll be moving to a little bit, twice the space, just about half a mile down the street. So we're staying on Barstow, we're staying downtown, and that was always part of the shift. And so for a while, it's kind of just having the radar up for that to happen, and things fell into place quickly and beautifully. And so we're really excited about that, and that with that growth will come more employees, hopefully being able to get a bit more of an online presence. But one thing I really love about the Raggedy Man experience, at least, is that it is an experience and you only get it when you're in Eau Claire. So the amount of people that we have that are coming into town to visit, or parents and stuff like that, what I love is being able to hear them say, we make this a stop every time we're here, making a destination. It also allows us to have a higher turnover of different products and just keep fresh things coming. And so we're not online. We may have a small presence in the future with some of our favorite things, or on the holidays, do like a shopping guide type thing. But for the most part, we're really happy with brick and mortar and curating the whole experience from the second you walk into the door to the second you leave.
Well, certainly the type of business you chose to go into, and you've kind of mentioned it a few times, really does fall into the arts and music scene, all this whole up and coming of what Eau Claire is. But talk a little bit about how critical, again, we think small business, it's not every day, but you're now coming into the holiday season. How critical is this next 2.5 months for you?
It's insanely critical. For my little space, I do over 1/3 of my entire year's sales between the start of November to December 25th. Okay. The highest spike being Small Business Saturday, and that's a really beautiful thing to see in Eau Claire too, is how many people come out for that. This past year, during the pandemic, we were able to open our doors, thankfully, with restrictions, but the thing is people who want to support you also support what that takes. And so, we would only have 10 people in at a time. During the Small Business Saturday, we totally lucked out with actually beautiful weather that day. So people were waiting outside and appreciating that to support us, this is part of what it looks like right now. Okay. We're back to semi-normal, whatever that is these days. But last year was my biggest holiday season in sales during the pandemic. So Eau Claire really shows up to support people. I mean, almost aggressively from some people, we really just want to support the businesses down here. So gift cards, and I mean even restaurants getting gift cards for people.
Well, we saw that last year as well, because I think we had an increase of almost 90,000 in chamber bucks. You know, again, a lot of people came in, didn't know what to, you know. So, and we're going to be putting a big push on this year again with the supply chain. So, you touched a little bit on the article. How much of the supply chain are you feeling right now?
The Christmas is really starting to put some heat on for it. Typically by, July, August, I have 90% of my holiday inventory. Right now I have about 30%. And the issue, kind of my thought on, the first year of things being shut down, there was enough back stock in warehouses, and there was still enough production stuff moving to hold us over for this year. And now what we're feeling is empty warehouses, and the wholesalers that I order from not being able to fill up those to get orders out, getting emails consistently from them saying like, hey, we just got an update, this is kind of where we're at. One of my biggest ones just sent out an email that they only have 40% of their inventory right now. So we're feeling the heat, but again, we're a small space, so it's nice as we're adaptable, especially this year and at this time. So our biggest fun thing for the holidays, ornaments, we've got half of those, with the other half confirmed coming at some point. And then this year we're really focusing less on maybe specific holiday decorations and kind of gifts, and more just like really cool gifts to give people, fun stocking stuffers, fun unique items. We're bringing back our white elephant section, which we love.
So something I've heard from many different businesses, and that maybe it's something to our listening audience. If you see it, you probably are going to want to buy it now. Absolutely. Because it may not be there when you come back in an hour.
Absolutely. Right. And that's sort of the journey I think we've trained Raggedy Man customers with, is that we like to keep fresh things coming, and that's part of the experience. Is we appreciate that every time you're there you might not find something you want, but knowing that each time you come there'll be different things to find. And this year especially, when it's gone, it's gone. So if you see something, get it. We're doing our best to make you happy, but that's definitely a big part of the issue right now, is just we can't get things the same way we used to. So,
well, Matt, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Kaya's taking her nap. Kaya, come here.
Say hi. Come here.
Come here, Kaya. You got to make your camera debut here. Oh, there's a good girl. Yes. See, camera's right over there. Here we go. Say hello, world. Well, stay with us. We've got our next two guests coming up. But again, I want to highlight, if you're looking to get downtown and support our local businesses, please do so, because again, they're having some of the same problems as everybody is with supply chain. And again, Matt's going to be at his current location the end of December, and in February opening up at his new location. And the address again?
It'll be 215 North Barstow, just down the way. So,
well, Matt, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. Our next two guests are coming up briefly. I'm pleased to introduce our second guest here today on the EC Life Sofa segment, Mike Golat. Mike is the administrator for the city of Altoona. And today we're going to talk a little bit about River Prairie. And the article in the magazine focuses a lot on the music. But Mike, let's talk a little bit about how did River Prairie got to where it is so you guys could focus on music?
Yeah, so River Prairie was very thoughtfully designed and conceived, and it started before I even got there, which I got here in 2006, but the leadership of Altoona envisioned a place that was welcoming to everyone, where there was a lot of things to do. And it just so happened, as I came on board, regional planning was hosting training on from the Project for Public Spaces based out of New York. And what they've done is they've gone all over the world and looked at what makes great public spaces great. And they had a kind of a rubric that kind of talked about what those areas had in common. I went to that training, and regional planning subsequently engaged with the city, and we had a lot of public meetings based on that. It's called the Power of 10, and what that means is just providing a whole bunch of different things for all kinds of a wide demographic to do. So that's kind of where it started, and we stuck to our guns, recognizing that the public space was the heart and soul of that development, and that people would be attracted to that and invest in our development, and thankfully it worked well.
Well, I think one of the things I've heard you and Mayor Pratt say many times over my 4 years here is that all of River Prairie was very thoughtful, laid out. It wasn't just, okay, we've got some land, let's let people build and not worry about what's going on next. So I really congratulate you guys on that, because sometimes that isn't done. You know, but when we look at the article that talked about the music, one of the other things I was very impressed on is, again, you guys took a time to step back and look at what other music was going on, what other entertainment options were going on, and instead of saying, okay, we're going to go head to head, you looked for different opportunities.
Sure. You know, we recognize that we're a relatively small part of a big Chippewa Valley, and I think I've referred to Altoona is kind of the little brother or little sister of Eau Claire, and we largely are. And our success is largely, or at least in part, based on what Eau Claire does over here, right? I mean, they are the force in the Chippewa Valley. They do, and they've done great work with their investment in the creative class and Phoenix Park and downtown redevelopment. They've got great accolades nationally for what they've done here. The music scene and the Justin Vernon effect has come on, Volume 1. So yeah, we don't operate in a vacuum, obviously. We look outward to make sure that we're complementing what other people, other communities in the region are doing. And even there was this concept called the venue ladder. And to have a good music scene, you have to have different size venues. You know, we looked at that very carefully when we sized our venues in River Prairie and looked at what kind of accoutrements that we needed to make it attractive to musicians and crowds.
Well, and again though, but I think for people who maybe born and raised have never left this area, I always say sometimes they just assume everything that goes on here must happen in every city. And as we both know, that collaboration, that willingness to work together and look at what are you doing and how do we fit in, that doesn't take place everywhere.
Yeah, that's a unique thing, and I think it's something that's come from a deliberate effort by all the regional partners, both public and private. It's also, I think, part of the Wisconsin way and the Chippewa Valley way. It doesn't happen everywhere in the state, but we know, at least I know, that what's good for Altoona is good for the greater community, and I think they realize the same thing. So we always do. We communicate a lot, and when we have questions about something that the other's doing or want input, we reach out to each other. Again,
I just hats off to all you for doing that, because I've been in areas and I watch areas where they don't, and you don't get the kind of success that we see here. Our next guest now, we're going to be talking a little bit about the census numbers and the growth. And again, we both know when people live here, they don't necessarily look at a border to where they're going to be, and they're going to be in all of the areas. So to have communities work that well together, to have them collaborate, is only going to benefit all. And as you said, what's good for one is going to benefit all. But as you look forward a little bit, as I said, our next guest, we're going to talk about the census and the growth. Altoona certainly has seen some significant growth because of these things, but where River Prairie is close to being filled out, where are you looking next? What's that next big development for Altoona?
Yeah, so I actually did a presentation yesterday for Chippewa Valley retirees. I can't remember the exact name of the organization, but they wanted a presentation on Altoona's amazing growth. And I seldom really stop and think, well, geez, really, how are we in the grand scheme of things? And we actually, with the new census numbers, we pulled those since 2010. We've had 29% growth, which is #1 in the state. population growth, and I think in that same time period, we've increased our valuation by 150%, which is crazy. So a lot of that, of course, was on the wings of River Prairie. And like I said in my presentation yesterday, timing is everything, right? I got here at a good time and had a very supportive council, good staff, and we were able to make it happen. So now we're kind of taking a pause here. We did buy 40 acres down Highway 12 at the intersection of Double S that the city's going to develop. We're having increasingly more inquiries about annexations to both north, east, and south. You know, so that's kind of what we're focused on. We're also focused on downtown redevelopment. We got a very small, not much going on there, but what we have going on is cool, you know, with Rumps and Nostalgic Bean, and you know, it's been very well received, and we want to build on that momentum. We bought a couple old buildings downtown that we're tearing down.
So a lot going on still, so well, wonderful. Well, Mike, thank you very much for being here, and again, want to thank our audience, and stay tuned for part 3 of this episode. Welcome back to our final part of our first episode of the EC Life. Again, our guest is Rod Eslinger. He is with the county, and we're talking about the census numbers that came out from 2010 and how that has affected our county. Now, Rod, one of the things I don't think a lot of people realize, as far as the state goes, really only 2 counties grew, Dane County and Eau Claire County. From your position, why do you see Eau Claire growing? What is it that's making that attractive?
Yes. I think it's multiple reasons why. I think just the community in general, why people want to come to Eau Claire. It's the quality of life here in Eau Claire. It's the medical community. It's the educational community. I see, you know, things that are happening as I drive downtown Eau Claire, and the development that's happening, and the redevelopment, the housing opportunities that are occurring. The city of Altoona. You know, that's speaking to our partners that are more internal, but I also see people that are wanting to come back in our rural areas. As I oversee county planning and development, we work with our rural partners and seeing areas that as we work on expanding broadband to our rural areas, that people are finding reasons to move to Eau Claire. It might be because of it's less expensive than coming from the Twin Cities or Chicago markets.
So in part of what you do, and you just kind of touched on it, in planning, you know, when we look at the growth, obviously the first thing people think about is housing, and we see a lot of that going on. But one of the things is we're looking is the townships around the city of Eau Claire. Are you working with them to try and anticipate how housing could happen and maybe prepare some things before a developer comes?
That's a great question. How we're working with our town partners is really that started 10 years ago, and we participated in a multi-group effort to update our comprehensive plans, not only from a county perspective, but working with the cities and then the villages and the towns. I believe there was 13 or 14 different municipalities that participated at that time. One of the big resulting what happened of that is that we developed the county comprehensive plan using the town's plan, especially the future land use plan, which does guide that development, that where we want to see residential happen. You know, specifically if you think south of the city of Eau Claire, 93, Lowe's Creek, as you go out, you see a lot of residential development. Well, in the town of Washington and or Pleasant Valley, those areas are really planned for that. Okay, the citizens, the town board, the plan commission really have said, okay, let's protect our agricultural areas, okay, which is very important to our community, all right. But yet here's an area where we can support, residential development. And in the rural area, to be honest with you, because we don't have sewer and water available generally, we're going to be into the single-family residential development, and there's a fair, we're still seeing fairly decent numbers. We're still seeing developers come forward with proposals to change rezoning petitions, to change zoning. So yeah, it's when COVID onset, the pandemic, last year, it was an uncertain time, very uncertain. But as we work through 2020 and as we're continuing to work through this year, we're still seeing strong numbers as far as permitting through our office, because we do most of the building permitting for most of the towns. Land use permits, we're still seeing, there's a lot of confidence with the consumer, the property owners, where, the rates obviously are low yet.
Right. Yes.
Interest rates. So, people are doing their projects, whether they're building their garages or, making that major life investment into building that new house and making that decision to commit to Eau Claire.
Well, and the reason I asked that, because that's one of the things since I came here that I've been asking, Catherine and some others at the county to be able to start a process to sit down with some of those rural areas. And I'm happy to hear people are already looking at it and doing it, because one of the things, again, and you mentioned earlier, is we know we're getting people from the Twin Cities, Chicago area. Well, if you look at your drive time and you may be only 3 miles from your workplace, but it's taking you an hour to get there, well, if you move to our area and you are still okay driving 30, 45, 60 minutes, there's a big area you can live in. And we know not everybody's going to want to move downtown or in a neighborhood. So that has been an area that we've wanted to pursue with the county to start, again, planning. Because we know from a developer standpoint, if the county, the chamber, others can work together and say, here's where you can build, that's much easier for them to look at than say, okay, where do we start? And what are we going to run into, and those kind of things. So, absolutely. Knowing that, of course, everybody has a perfect crystal ball, and we know what's coming tomorrow. Yeah. But again, we just saw the growth after 10 years. What do you see as the potential growth for our area over the next 10 years?
It's gonna factor on several things. Obviously, the interest rates are going to drive those areas. One of the biggest, if not the highest priority, is guiding growth, especially in the rural areas of the county, is going to have the ability to have access to high-speed internet. Period. Okay, and then also within our cities, and just to have that competitive opportunity, for broadband businesses. I've talked to Luke Hansen, the EDC, and he said, as we build out our industrial parks, our rural industrial parks, one of the major things that they ask for, what's the service of broadband in there, and not only is 3-phase, power and those sort of things, and accessibility to major routes, thoroughfares, which we are blessed with in this county, very, very blessed with the interstate and then our state highway system. So we're fortunate, we're ahead of the game, and just the position where we are, geographically speaking, within the state of Wisconsin as it relates to the Twin Cities market, Wausau, Green Bay, and then even going down to Madison and Chicago, Milwaukee, those areas. So there's plenty of opportunity. I see there's also opportunity for our ag sector, ag businesses, as we talked a little bit about people coming in, what does that mean for, to promote some of those, where people can make a good, comfortable living, using some sort of ag business or developing that in the rural areas.
And that's, as you mentioned, ag business, I've realized, I don't think as many people understand how important ag is, not only to our area, but to the state. But, again, you get kind of caught in that trap of going the same way. And, unless you get into the rural area and you realize Eau Claire really is surrounded by farms on all sides, it is a huge part of what we do. So, but you also touch on, again, I think something through the pandemic that we all realized is fiber optics. What is that bandwidth? How much does everybody have? I think the good news is I think enough politicians now understand that. I don't think they really understand what it's going to take to finish it, but broadband is now critical. It's something we all have to have, and I know, again, as you mentioned, we're working with Luke and others too to, as I hear the federal government talk about, we're going to invest X amount of million, and we're pushing right now that the villages are talking to the towns of the city of the county. Are we connecting in the right places? And in some areas, are we doing the right thing for a town A may be different than town B? So it is critical, but we know it's not something it's nice to have, we have to figure it out. Right. And we hear the same thing from businesses, can remember the days been doing this long enough where it was, again, what do you have for electric, what do you have for sewer, what do you got for gas? Now, as you say, that we need to know what broadband is here because it's critical to our infrastructure.
Absolutely. And one of the things I would like to add just to that, as far as it relates to Eau Claire County, the county board saw this as an initiative. Yep. So we developed they appointed a broadband committee back in 2019, and this was ahead of the pandemic, right? And seeing the need because of our rural areas, we're saying that, hey, we're losing population, we're losing people, or people weren't buying properties because they didn't have those services, or they have had very poor service. So I could just share a little bit of a success story in that area through working with partnership through the broadband committee, working with several towns, specifically the town of Drummond, which I would consider them as a pioneer. That town has worked with the internet service providers that cover that area, Tri-County Communication, and 24/7, working with the county and then the broadband committee. We've done a survey. That project has resulted in, it will result here wrapping up in complete coverage of that community with fiber optic from both of those companies. Okay. And so it was a heavy lift, spearheaded by the town clerk, Mark Zuber. The big shout out to Mark, because he not only led, he also had a town committee that made connections with the community. They held a referendum that he decided to say, hey, this is important for us. They decided to go ahead and essentially end up taxing themselves. And then along with the Public Service Commission grants, so we're seeing that project, like I said, wrap up. And I'm going to jump ahead to the ARPA funding that all the municipalities have been given. This past summer, the county board has allocated, or obligated, I should say, $2.8 million as a fund match to the towns in Eau Claire County to match their ARPA funds to go towards broadband infrastructure. So from a county's perspective, not only from a county board perspective, but a broadband perspective, we are invested. We just went to the Towns Association meeting and reminded them that we're here to help, we're here to assist, and and those funds are available to match what they have. That's great. So I'm excited for that, but they are one-time funds, obviously, and the time frame is short. It's a very highly competitive area right now because it's across the United States. It's across Wisconsin, and it's across every municipality in Wisconsin and in the United States, for that matter.
And again, as we went through this, everybody realized we got to have it. It's now, how do we do it? But again, one of our biggest goals over the next several years, and what we put a lot of work into over the last 18 months, is workforce. And I tell people, you give me the topic, I'll tie it back to workforce in about 4 moves. But again, when we're looking at drawing people here from larger municipalities or metro areas, they can go to those rural areas. They need that broadband because 1 or 2 people are working from home. If your kid is doing school, So again, I think as a country we've realized it's no longer nice to have, but it's core infrastructure. So I'm very happy to see that and hear that the county is moving forward and doing a lot of work on that. So, but Rod, I want to thank you. Appreciate you being part of our first EC Life sofa segment. Again, this is part of our program with our new magazine, the EC Life. There we go. Again, just a quick wrap up about this. This is, as a new product, really replacing some older pieces that we used to do. We feel in today's world we have to stay in tuned and up to date with what we're doing. So not only can you view this show, but you can also just simply listen to it. It's multiple ways for us, the chamber, to bring what's going on to you. But as we look at workforce, really one of those stories we have to tell is why people want to live here. It's not about simply the numbers and the temperature and those things. It's about, as Rod said earlier, the quality of life. And you know, I think if I take anything away from the census numbers, again, looking at only Dane County and Eau Claire County grew. Dane County grew because it's the capital, simple out. So I think that says a lot about why people are moving here, the wonderful things we have going. We just need to continue doing that, and we need to continue to tell the story. So for all of you out there watching this and sharing this, send it to your friends, send it to your family, encourage them to take a look at the Chippewa Valley. We've got a lot of jobs, we have a lot of opportunities. We need people. We need people to move here. So if you would like information on our next edition of the EC Life, it'll come out in January. If you'd like to find out how you can support it, if you want to advertise in it, or maybe you have a story to tell, let us know. We want to be able to help tell those stories. So Rod, again, thank you to all of our supporters in this program, and to Atmosphere Commercial Interiors for the beautiful furniture that we get to use on this show. Thank you, and we'll see you down the road.